extra man offense plays, it's best to incorporate some element of surprise to try to confuse the defense. This 1-4-1 to a 3-3 uses a ball side slip screen to try to get an easy look in the crease. It's best suited for intermediate to advanced skill levels. The trigger on this play is the player at X. I'm going to have him go to the left.
Happy Saturday and welcome into the LSN Broadcast Center. I'm Megan Triplett, he's Tom Eschen, and we're here like always every Saturday to get you ready for your lacrosse game day.
Yeah, it's been a fun season so far. Got a couple weeks left. Before we preview what's to come today, the action actually started last night between Yale and Albany. The big storyline, T.D. Erlin, the guy you see here making his return to Albany to go up against his former team. And he did get a big hug from his former coach, Scott Marr, after the game. We'll see why in just a second.
Yeah. How about we get you these highlights of this big matchup on Friday night? Let's go to the second quarter. Yale already up 5-0. Guess what? T.D. Erlin, he wins the faceoff, and he's going to keep it himself. Goes coast to coast, and he is going to score Yale's sixth goal of the game, and that gives them the 6-0 lead. That's the way to come back to your former home. And then about under 5 seconds to play in this game, Yale leads 6-1. Jacob Patterson with a beautiful pass. Goal right there, a rocket one to get them Albany to cut the game to 6-2. Third quarter though, Yale, it's just going to be too much for them. Yale's up 7-3. Oh, that's a replay for me on that one. Didn't know that was coming. Jacob Patterson, it was a beautiful BTB goal there. Now let's go to the third quarter. Yale up 7-3. Jackson Morrill beats Brian Telvin, who unloads a laser to put the Bulldogs up by 5. Guess what, you guys? Yale's gonna go ahead and win this game single-handedly, 10-5 on a Friday night. T.D. Erlin had a day, Tom.
Yeah, why don't we take a closer look at exactly what he did against his former team. He won 16 of 17 faceoffs, scooped up 13 ground balls, and you saw there, scored his fourth goal of the year. The only faceoff he lost, get this, was because he dropped his stick while trying to pick up the ground ball. It was like a monsoon out there, so it was a little bit slippery. This year, he's winning 77.9% of his faceoffs this season. Let's round it up, 78. You know?
Might as well.
His NCAA record is 79.1, which he set last season.
So he's probably going to break that.
If he keeps this up with the way he's going now. Not too bad.
So that was a great game on Friday, and that leads us to the games coming up your way today. That's a number of them that can determine postseason fates.
Yeah, let's start in the Big Ten, where despite going unbeaten in non-conference play, Ohio State is in danger of missing the Big Ten tourney. Yeah, that's actually a thing. But a win against number 2 Maryland would go a long way towards helping them jump into the top 4 in the conference. The Buckeyes won last year's meeting in College Park, and 5 of the last 7 meetings have been decided by 2 goals or less. Both teams have been really good, with offensive balance. Ohio State with 3 guys at 30 or more points. Maryland, 4 players at 30 or more. Here's analyst Evan Washburn on the matchup.
Maryland taking on Ohio State. Ohio State, of course, with the victory over Johns Hopkins. Maryland with a Sunday night victory over Rutgers. So this one, both teams coming in off of nice wins.
This is the headliner of the weekend, if you think about it. I envision just an absolute slugfest of a game. If we're in the low teens or, in that 10 range, then maybe we're winning. I think it helps that this is a game that maybe doesn't have massive impact on the Big Ten standings and where these guys are going to fall. More so, just you think about just quality wins and seeding for the NCAA tournament, and for a group that'll probably see themselves again in a few weeks. I think Maryland showed some toughness and the ability to fight through what was an ugly start to their game against Rutgers on Sunday night. And on the flip side, Ohio State can turn the field and turn the score on you as well as anybody in the country. They did that against Johns Hopkins, and they have some real star power in Trey LeClaire. So this is just a fun lacrosse game to watch that can be really physical at times.
So Evan, thinking Ohio State and Maryland's going to be the headliner of the weekend.
Interesting.
It's really big.
I like that.
Now let's switch topics now, because there's a conference where a lot of things are still heating up.
The Ivy League, the race is heating up. The tournament's just right around the corner, with a couple of games to go. So let's take a look at the standings. Penn, sits at the top at 5-0. Yale is behind them in the conference at 4-1. the question still remains and who the last 2 spots and who's going to make the conference tournament there. Cornell and Brown both at 2-2 in conference play. The top 4 make it. And Princeton and Harvard aren't too far behind. They're at 1-3 in peace. So these teams are going to need some wins.
Right. But these last 2 games of the week for them, a lot of them are going to count. And obviously, there is no question about Penn making the tournament. The Quakers are riding a 7-game winning streak, and the Quakers clinched at least a share of the Ivy title last weekend with a dominant 26-13 win at Harvard. Now, a Penn win on Saturday or a Yale loss over the next 2 weeks will ensure the first outright Ivy League title for the Quakers since 1984, the only other time Penn went 6-0 in an Ivy season. Travis Eldridge asked ESPN analyst Quint Kestenik about the Quakers' dominance this season on Lacrosse Weekly. Take a listen.
You got Penn now in the top 5 in the media poll. I had a chance to see the Quakers earlier this year when it kind of had their breakout. They beat Villanova and beat St. Joe's, and they have not lost since. How for real is this Penn team? What's your read on them?
Well, you're one of the few people that have seen them, especially in person. I've watched highlights. And then prior to our Ivy League championships on May 3rd and May 5th on ESPNU, I will really dig deep. Okay, the numbers are glowing. Number 2 RPI. They started 0-3. They've won 7 straight. They're doing it in different layers, whether it's Handley, the young midfielder, Simon Matthias, whether it's the defense and veteran goalie Reed Junkin. Okay, they've won critical games against Yale and Cornell, close, high-scoring games, and to say that this team isn't for real wouldn't be fair. I think a lot of people need to see them in person to make that judgment themselves, but their resume stands up right now as an at-large selection. Now, the historical questions I have, Travis, are, look, last time they were seeded number 4 back in 2014, they lost a home game to Drexel. Okay, 2011 they lost. 2006 they lost. Their last playoff win was in 1988. So we can't hold that against this team. But I'm struggling to get beyond those historical notes. And again, I have to discipline myself to separate that from this current group, because if we learn anything from Yale last year or Brown a few years ago, good Ivy League teams can make it to championship weekend.
But you can hear from Quint, plus get to know Maryland goalie Megan Taylor more in the latest episode of Lacrosse Weekly on ESPN. Plus, there's a new episode every Tuesday talking to some of the movers and shakers in the lacrosse world, as we do all the time here on LAC Sports Network, too.
You definitely don't want to miss an episode of Lacrosse Weekly, because now things are heating up and the race is on, and we break every single thing down in the lacrosse world on that show.
Yeah, a lot of good perspective there. Speaking of a good perspective, what's been your favorite part of the CAA seasons thus far this year? Who's really stuck? Has there been anyone stuck out for you?
I mean, obviously Towson has, but then also you got to give credit to Delaware.
I know.
Like,
Towson had sort of had all the headlines to start the year.
Going into it, and now it's like, Delaware?
Yeah.
Oh, I need to know more about this Delaware team.
Pretty good, pretty impressive. Why don't we look at the standings?
Let's do it, because these two critical weeks are left in the CAA, and here's a look at how everything is being played out so far on the men's side. Delaware is all alone at the top of the standings at 3-0 with games against the 2 other top teams remaining, Towson and UMass. Of course, as you guys know, that game is one of them is today. And those same 2 teams are right behind them in the standings at 2-1 in conference play. Drexel and Hofstra are both 1-2. And Fairfield's still looking for a conference win.
Well, still something to be decided there, especially between those top 3 teams. The other huge game in the CAA is today here. Number 14 Towson at 20th ranked Delaware. That's a big one. The Blue Hens ranked nationally for the first time since 2012. Offensively, they're led by Charlie Kitchen and freshman Ty Kurtz, while they also boast one of the best defenses and goalies in the country. Matt DeLuca, second in the nation in save percentage.
And then now, as for Towson, they're looking to bounce back after a gut punch last week against UMass. The Tigers trailed by 9 goals entering the 4th quarter before the offense finally woke up and made the game a little more interesting. Now, keep your eye on Brody McLean offensively. Towson is now 7-0 when he has 3 or more points, or they're 0-4 when he tallies less than that.
I guess that decides the game right there. So look at the tail of the tape here, and what sticks out to me is the goals against average. Delaware, we talked about their defense. They have Matt DeLuca. about 1.5 goals less allowed a game than compared to Towson. But then you look at the face-offs. So if Alex Woodall can give him a few more possessions and maybe get the offense going for Towson, they might have a chance to really crack that code of the defense. So that's what we're looking for today in this game. But if things shake out, maybe go even in the face-off, or Delaware just plays the way they do defensively.
Hey, last game, Delaware did need that face-off position really that much. They still, were lacking in. I think they won 3, and they were still able to win.
Yeah, they've had a couple injuries there, so it's been interesting, like you said.
They still find a way every time.
Right.
So get ready. You can watch the Blue Hens battle the Tigers. It's right here on LAC Sports Network, and coming up in just a few minutes, it's 12 o'clock Eastern. And right after, we'll wrap up LSN and College Central as well. And of course, we'll come back for a little post-game show to get you to the next game as well.
Yeah, we'll get you there. We always do. Later this afternoon at 3 Eastern, we'll have a pregame show, and then we'll see UMass back in action, taking on Fairfield. Now, we last saw the Minutemen dominate Towson for 3 quarters, as we mentioned, leading 12-3 after 3. They went on to win 14-10. Still a statement, nonetheless. UMass now 2-1 in conference play, as we saw trailing unbeaten Delaware. Taking on Fairfield today, a team they beat 11-8 last year in Connecticut. Here's what the Minutemen have to say about the matchup.
No, I mean, it's a league game, and it's Towson, who is a great program. They've been the gold standard in our conference over the last 6-7 years here. So I don't know if there's extra motivation with our guys, but we just tried to get our guys to go out there, play with great intensity, not worry about the scoreboard, just go out and play together and play hard.
Coming off a tough loss in overtime against Hofstra, we just got to get back to basics. We don't think we stuck to what we did that well that week, and we had to go back to the drawing board and really stick to what we do and, have a good week of practice and go out there and compete, because we knew Towson's a great team, and, we just stick to our game plan and we had some success.
All right, let's talk about the Stags now. They're still searching for their first conference win, and they're 0-3 in conference play. Now, they're led by junior attackman Dylan Beckwith, who leads the team in goals, assists, and points. Now, with a bigger role in the offense, he's already overtaken his totals from last year. We spoke with him earlier this week. Take a listen.
Just going to start by asking a little bit about this season. Obviously you're having your best year so far in the collegiate game. What's been different for you so far?
I would just say I have a bigger role this year. I would say Coach Copen wants a little more out of me this year than past years, and I guess I've kind of stepped up, but not really. I mean, we haven't had too many wins this year, but hopefully the next 2 games we finish the season strong and get into the conference play.
And Scanoni and the Minutemen host Fairfield this afternoon in our CAA game of the week. It's right here on LSN. Coverage will begin at 3 o'clock Eastern with face-off scheduled for 3:15. Of course, it's free on the LSN app and lacsn.com. All right, coming up, the NCAA is making a change to recruiting rules, but it will not impact lacrosse. Reaction from the IWLCA is on the way.
And one of the best rivalries in sports taking place in the women's game today between Duke and North Carolina. What Duke star Charlotte North has to say about the matchup.
And we'll look more of this week's biggest matchups. Evan Washburn will tell us how he thinks Penn State and Johns Hopkins will shake out. That and more still to come here on LSN College Central.
Speed. Power. This trophy is not given, it must be earned. The NCAA Men's Lacrosse Championships. May 25th through 27th at Lincoln Financial Field in Philadelphia.
In the stick, boom, on the money, cradle and a pass. With the first championship!
Visit ncaa.com/lacrosse to get your tickets today.
Welcome back. Now, we had big news coming out this week in regards to college recruiting. The NCAA announcing that the Division I Council decided to exclude men's and women's lacrosse from a proposal that was threatening to change the date of first contact between college coaches and prospective student athletes.
Yeah, so for other sports, the date a coach can start contacting an athlete is now June 15th after a student's sophomore year. But that's not the case for lacrosse, which will stay September 1st of an athlete's junior year of high school. The September 1st date, something the IWLCA and IMLCA strongly supported.
Well, I think it's important for lots of reasons. Number one, we just got this legislation through in the spring of 2017. And, we've really only been through one cycle of it, and I don't think it's enough time for us to be able to judge whether or not the rule has good long-term effects or potential impact. So for us, I think that's, one of the biggest things. We need to see it in action for longer in order to make decisions. And I think, to potentially go back or change just this so soon into the rule, I think would be very confusing for recruits and their families. And I think very disruptive to particularly the class of 2021 come this June if they were having to manage phone calls, text messages from coach coaches when they're still in their academic year and lacrosse season.
And you can see our full conversation with Duke head coach Kirsten Kimmel on demand right now on LaxSportsNetwork.com and on the LSN app. She had some amazing things, and she broke down what all this means and why they were trying to be excluded from that proposal and why they're happy with that.
Yeah, this was a point of emphasis for them, the IWSA and MCA, for a long time now, ever since this had gone into place.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get to the rest of today's women's action now. One of the best rivalries in sports in store tonight when Duke, North Carolina women get together in Durham.
This game originally scheduled for Friday, but due to weather was moved to tonight.
That's okay.
That's
We have
fine.
to wait just a little bit longer.
Yeah, so we'll have more on that game in just a moment. But we have more ACC action when Virginia Tech meets Virginia. The Cavaliers fighting for a better seed in next week's tournament. The top 6 battle also at 7 Eastern tonight. Notre Dame hosting Northwestern, and top-ranked Boston College finishing their regular season with Louisville at 1 this afternoon. So a lot of great matchups to watch prime time or a little bit earlier in the day.
As for that rivalry matchup, though, 13th ranked Duke hosting 3rd ranked North Carolina, where there's always pride on the line between these two schools and always positioning in the ACC, too. Last year, Tar Heels doubled up the Blue Devils, though, 20-10 in Kenan Stadium. This season, Carolina coming in with an 11-3 record, Duke at 9-6. Blue Devils led by Charlotte North, who has 12 points in her last 2 games.
It's definitely not like any other game. I mean, you kind of get chills being able to put on the Duke jersey in one of the biggest rivalries in college sports. And there's just kind of this sense of excitement around the game more so than any other game. And you just want to make the alums proud of Duke Women's Lacrosse, and come out with a win.
All right, so once again, that game is at 7 p.m. Eastern tonight. Now, here's how good the ACC is. We got 5 teams ranked in the top 7. Boston College is number 1, Carolina number 3, Notre Dame and Syracuse 4 and 5, and Virginia at 11 and 5 and 7th in the nation. UNC coach Jenny Levy came on the show this week to talk about just how good this conference is. Take a listen.
It's great to see the ACC where we are. Obviously BC being number 1, and then you've got like Syracuse, Notre Dame, Duke's in there, Virginia's in there, and then Louisville and Virginia Tech are also, competing with some of the better teams in the country. So, we're no stranger to one of the strongest schedules in the country. The past couple of years, I think we've had the number 1 strength of schedule. BC's fantastic. The combination of Apuzzo with Kenzie Ken and Dempsey Arsenal, and then their other guys are there. I think they start like 8 seniors who've all been on the field for them for the past 3 or 4 years. And I think that they are, from playing everybody, those guys are top notch. Maryland also has a really good senior laden group with Jen Giles, and then obviously their transfers with Erica Evans and Syverson, and then Caroline Steele. So they again also have a lot of experience coming into this season. I felt like we had a little bit of a bigger ladder to climb this year with some of the holes that were left by our graduation last year, and so we knew that we'd take some time to get where we wanted to be, and we're still climbing. But I think, look at our BC loss. It was a 2-goal game, then we had a yellow card, and then it went south from there. And that's just, they're great. I have nothing. I look at the game, I'm like, we hurt ourselves, but they were also great. Our Maryland game obviously is an overtime loss. We had the opportunity to win it, and I just felt like some of our late game experience or inexperience showed in that game. And Caroline Steele obviously won it for them, a senior starter, 4-year starter for them. And then our Notre Dame game, Notre Dame's coming off a tough season last year, and they've kind of recollected themselves. They got a lot of great talent on their field and great goalkeeper. So I think all 3 of our losses, we've absolutely taken away some learning, and come back to the tent and say, okay, what needs work, let's get after it. And I'm happy with where we are, but not content.
All right, still ahead. All this talk about Saturday. We still have a big game on Sunday, too. Top-ranked Penn State in action on tomorrow against Big Ten foe Johns Hopkins. So coming up, Evan Washburn is going to break down that matchup for us.
And it was one of the moments of the year in 2018, the Varello brothers meeting at the X with it all on the line. We look back on that day, and we preview tonight's rematch between Syracuse and Navy next here on LSN College Central.
Speed. Power. This trophy is not given, it must be earned. The NCAA Men's Lacrosse Championships. May 25th through 27th at Lincoln Financial Field in Philadelphia.
In the stick, boom, on the money, cradle and a pass. Win the first championship!
Visit ncaa.com/lacrosse to get your tickets today.
Join us for the most rewarding lacrosse tradition, Shootout for Soldiers. Shootout for Soldiers is a 24-hour lacrosse event with a mission to use lacrosse as a platform to support American veterans and foster community engagement. Started by a group of high schoolers in Maryland in 2012, Shootout for Soldiers has raised over $3 million for our nation's heroes. A festival-like atmosphere that engages veterans, active duty, and a local community will be hosted in 12 locations in 2019. Registration is open. Men's and women's teams of all ages and abilities are welcome to participate. Visit www.shootoutforsoldiers.com for more information and to register. 24 hours, one game, one goal, support our troops.
We got a score update. 4-4, Duke and Marquette going at it here in the second quarter in Bethpage, New York. Duke sort of plays this game every year towards the end of the season. See Jake Seau's got a couple goals. Prendergast has a goal. Brad Smith has a goal as well on their side. So far, a pretty close game. Duke was up like 3-1 early in this one, but Marquette fighting. Interesting.
They call it the Battle of Bethpage for a reason.
That's
gonna be a battle.
Exactly right, Megan.
It's going to be a battle. All right, so our action today started nice and early out in New York. So let's head to the Big Ten now, right?
Yeah, we got Penn State going up against Johns Hopkins, and they play tomorrow. The question, can anyone in the Big Ten beat Penn State? I guess we're going to find out,
Yeah,
right?
we will. Penn State, their only setback was against Yale, but that was almost 2 months ago. Now, they're the only team with a one loss in the country, and they have won 7 straight. Meanwhile, the Blue Jays at 2-1 in the conference play, but will try to recover from giving up a 2-goal fourth quarter lead last week against Ohio State. Here's Evan's take on the Lions and the Blue Jays.
And now let's keep it in the Big Ten. Of course, the reigning #1 team in the country, Penn State, going to take on Johns Hopkins. Hopkins going to try to bounce back from that Ohio State loss. Can they do it against the #1 team?
I'm pretty sure they're hosting Penn State, so that provides, I guess, some luxury. I don't think they're anywhere near the class of Penn State at this point, and that had to be a frustrating way to lose a game when they played well early against Ohio State. But you can't replicate desperation, and for Johns Hopkins, that's exactly where they find themselves, and this provides an opportunity against the #1 team in the country that if you could pull off the upset, it would completely shift your future in terms of trying to claw your way back inside the bubble, because I think they're squarely on the outside right now.
Another good matchup tonight, 5 p.m. Eastern. Syracuse hits the road to visit Navy for the first time since 1980. It'll be just the second time the two programs have met since playing in the NCAA championship game in 2004. The other game last year. The Mids went to the Carrier Dome, won a dramatic 1-goal game. As you've been hearing, Scott Sudikoff with Evan Washburn earlier this week asking the questions.
Well, this to me is one that Syracuse has to have, and Navy, if they can pull off an upset, it's great. I was in Annapolis last week. I'll be back again for this game, and you can tell that Navy's a team that's really clawing to find ways to score, and at times things are just a challenge on both ends. They're blessed by a all-American caliber goaltender in Ryan Kern, and I think he's going to be the best shot for the Mids to try and pull off an upset here against a really balanced Syracuse team who's just playing a nice, complete brand of lacrosse on both ends. So I don't see this as a game that lends itself towards that upset pick, because there's also that emotional letdown that comes from an Army-Navy game, even if you win it, and Navy lost it in heartbreaking fashion.
Now let's talk about last year's game for a second, because it was exciting now, but even more so because of the drama at the end of the game.
Yeah, this was incredible. It was 9 seconds ago. It was Joe and Danny Varello, the brothers, going at it, and you see Joe won it and then won the game. Pretty amazing. But then what happened next was pretty sweet too.
Yeah, with tenths of a second left on the clock, they had to meet at the X one more time, and they hugged it out. Now, it was a memorable moment for not only those two programs, but that family. Here's what Danny, now a junior, had to say this week.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a big moment for my family. But, yeah, I think this year it's obviously, tough to walk into the locker room every day and, see my brother score the game-winning goal. But, I'll turn the TV off every time I walk in. But, no, I mean, I think it's better. There's less distractions, less hype around the game. I can kind of, it's easier to focus now. It wasn't hard last time, but it was just a lot going on. I had to worry about getting 15 complimentary tickets from my teammates, and it was just a lot of it sounded. It was more of like a UFC fight than a game. So a lot of hype around it, but it's good now. So I get to kind of relax and focus on my game and focus on what I can do better. And yeah, a year later, there's definitely some old memories coming back, but I think I'm just motivated to do well. It's funny, I actually had a dream last night about it. I was like, that I scored the game-winning goal, which probably won't happen, but it was funny that Joe was like, maybe you can return the favor this weekend, and because he deploys tomorrow, so I talked to him yesterday. But yeah, I mean, I guess the only way I can return the favor is help our team win. So I guess that's it.
Wow, that was between the dream and and Joe being deployed now, because that was earlier in the week. So a lot of mix of emotions there.
Yeah, I think you forget. I think last year it was so exciting to see them go up against each other, but you kind of forget, like, a lot of these guys on, like, you have Navy, you have Army. They're college athletes too, but they have to worry about other things, and this is such a bigger picture thing for them.
Right.
It's not just about the sport sometimes.
Yeah, and there you have the family dynamic
mixed
in everything else. Pretty cool stuff there. Of course, later on tonight, make sure to tune in to Lacrosse Now, 9 p.m. All the highlights, reaction, analysis from today's action for the men and the women. 9 Eastern right here, LaxSportsNetwork.com and the LSN app.
And we'll have a full day of lacrosse right here on LSN. So, you know, at noon and over in LSN, we'll have the top 20 matchup going down. Then at 3 o'clock, we got another game going on, too.
Should be a good action here between the two teams fighting for the top of the conference. We'll get started here in a few minutes. Last outing between these two teams occurred last year, May 3rd, where Towson beat Delaware 9-8.